Hey, welcome back. I got here behind me, those hands on the wall. You see, sometimes people still come on the channel with my old content on this channel. They're like, why is that there? It looks demonic, it looks scary. Well, this is where all my insights come from, straight from hell. I mean, if we're gonna go along with that logic. No, it honestly is just there for fun, to be honest. So almost it's kind of silly to know that people are so shocked about it. But today I wanted to discuss a couple of points that I have jotted down here on my monitor. That's why, I'm not directly looking into the camera. Might be a little strange to some. Sorry about that. But I do wanted to, show my face a bit more regularly again, as I'm going over these notes that hopefully serve someone out there as they go through their own journey called life, called living, being alive on planet Earth. Because if we don't really know the purpose, which is ultimately what this video will hint at, it's actually kind of subjective. It's like the purpose of living itself can be something that we, think up for ourselves. So it's not really that what I'm about to share with you is how it's 100% for everyone and it's the only way to look at life. Of course not. It's just to share some ideas again that can hopefully make life a bit more easy, or at least more interesting and fun. Because there's already enough chaos out there in the world, as we know, that is only making life more miserable for all of us if we get lost in it. So let me look at the monitor here on my notes and we'll go over this. So concerning this purpose of life, of what it's all about, I wrote that we should not be tempted by going along with things just because the majority of people do it. So life is not meant to be spent obsessing over physical things. It is about spiritual awakening and gaining experiences in spiritual perception and wisdom within your own soul. So you see, most people, they already spend all of their time only on the physical side and ignore the spiritual altogether. Why is that the case? Well, we're actually going to get into this, at least from my own perspective, on why I think it's the case, and then hopefully it makes more sense. But how do these temptations actually occur that cause us to ignore the spiritual side altogether? And because of it, it becomes harder to perceive the actual purpose of life itself. Well, if I'm going to give you an example here that I wrote, it would be, for example, in my case with YouTube. There is a temptation in this case to obsess over views and subscribers. And everywhere I look, most people are all obsessed with it and brag over it. They're obsessed with getting more and more views. Because of course, the more views you get, the more money you can make on this platform. So in a way, there's this obsession going on, right? This obsession, but it's not necessarily bad. It does keep you motivated and inspired and, determined to keep going with the goal you have. So it's not meant to say that this is bad. It's just that there's a risk in this. Because people then become like, they can't start bragging and they become completely arrogant and egoic in their way of living. Now, there's also this obsession because of it. People try to gain the system. So all these things are temporal. See, they're all temporary by nature. So dedicating all my life to this kind of stuff is rather absurd. In the bigger picture, I have to remain calm and detached when dealing with these elements for myself. I have to remain aware that it is about spiritual evolution and awakening, which has nothing to do with what is going on physically speaking, but rather what is going on spiritually within my own consciousness. Because what if today is the day you were to die? I would die, you die today, right? Out of nowhere, I just dropped that. Oh, I'm dead. Oh. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully I'll be able to finish the video, but what if this is going to happen? Well, then I realize I spent all this time obsessing, for example, over YouTube numbers in my case, or other purely physical things, whatever they are. You can look at it in your own life, whatever you're obsessed about. And I obsess about that to the exclusion of actually awakening to God realization, to grasp and perceive and experience the true spiritual divine nature of life and consciousness. So what about it? Well, it would be a great tragedy, and yet that is how the masses come and go, from birth until death. Their minds are completely filled and obsessed with things of the temporal physical world instead of the eternal principles and nature of existence itself. This causes suffering in myself, I have noticed. Whenever I do not fully live up to the spiritual, then I notice a form of suffering within my very being for chasing only physical things. So what is the remedy? I wrote out here, it is a threefold approach for spiritual awakening. First, we must know the origin of our lives. Second, we must know the joy that comes if we keep in mind the origin of our existence and work from this awareness as we go through life. And thirdly, we should spend time daily to increase this spiritual awareness so that it will grow stronger and more firm, instead of being sporadic moments of enlightenment. So then peace and joy can follow you from within, while you do things physically without this obsession over temporary things. We as a society have made it so. This delusion that someone is only worth something if they have certain things physically speaking. So we all chase these numbers and things in order to gain a certain status for ourselves in this world. But it all leads to suffering in the end, for you will have to let go. It is better to spend time gaining spiritual wisdom and awareness that allows you to see beyond the physical realm, so you don't obsess over it in the same manner. We let things come and go freely. Truly now, if you gained a lot of fame and wealth on earth after you die, it matters nothing. You have to go on and other people will eventually forget about you, other than perhaps keeping some record of you for history's sake and by what you left behind for the world. But it won't truly matter to you personally, since you already moved on to the next phase of your eternal journey. By understanding this, you can stop obsessing over physical things that otherwise cause suffering. If you feel lack and limitation over not having certain things, you try to desperately chase stuff in the hopes of finding long-term fulfillment in them, well, they never last. This brings us down to the main point. You see, life should be enjoyed, and this is my opinion, by the way. You can add to that or you can discard it, it doesn't really matter, just you can listen to it if you want, hopefully. So life should be enjoyed by doing what we find fun to do, while never being obsessed over results and things and having abnormal attachments to anything. Then you get to enjoy life. You let it flow freely and move on once the time comes to leave. So God has placed us, you and me, in this moment of time to blossom in our own ways. And if we let it, then suffering won't have to drag us down. We suffer if we try to push beyond this foundation, by trying to live up to goals just so that others might be impressed with us. Instead, we should ask God for guidance on all matters, and then we will be led into doing all things with ease and peace of mind, regardless of what supposed status we gain in this world. Because God wants you to express your desires. If you do not like the term God, you could just say the universe, because that is about the purpose of living. To express your desires, to live your purpose, whatever that may be, without obsessing over what you get from it in return in this temporary realm. If this flow truly is established, then you will keep growing with your purpose and things will come to you, but you will forever remember it is because of flowing and following your purpose and nothing else. I actually made an error there. I said the word flowing, it should have been following. So let me repeat that. So you see, you will keep growing with your purpose and things will come to you, but you will forever remember it is because of following your purpose and nothing else. Everything comes from one primal source. You could therefore say it is all part of the body of God, even though it has an enormous sense of multiplicity and division among people and objects. So you should not worry about your income status, even if you don't make a lot of money, compared to family or friends, and to them it might look strange. See, your work, your purpose lives on beyond your death, to help more of the children of God yet to come. So do your work with this in mind, that no matter whether you remain in a certain limited state physically speaking or not, your work as you're here will serve a purpose even after you're gone on this planet. And that is something most people don't truly spend time on to begin with. They don't consider it, and so they remain obsessed with just getting things for themselves as much as possible. But it is a losing battle, because you're going to have to let it behind again the moment you pass away. See, it is a real mental war I can perceive even for myself, this temptation to make your worth depend on earthly status and money and fame, or to just know it don't matter. I do my own thing, that's all I'm doing. Because ultimately that's what it comes down to. It doesn't really matter what you have done or achieved, because you will leave and you keep doing your own thing. So in my case, I spent my time trying to help people see that they are the children of God and what it means to be such a child. Now, after passing on from this life, the earthly goals you had won't matter anymore since you move on with your own eternal journey. This shows that the time that we have, physically speaking, should be used in doing and sharing what we found meaningful while we were here. It should all be God-inspired. Keep this in mind with all you do. This way, life really isn't about getting as much as you can, physically speaking. It is about giving and sharing soul-inspired ideas while you were physically here. That is the only logical way of living, at least to me personally, since everything is temporary. In order to do this, we have to listen to our hearts. We have to quiet the surface mind with all its worries and attachment to things so that we can sense from within what our purpose for living is. Knowing that physical lives come to an end for all of us, it almost can seem meaningless, this whole journey. So what makes us think there is something beyond the physical, and what makes us think there is nothing beyond it? We say there is something beyond the physical from actual experience of being in other spiritual dimensions of life. We say there is nothing beyond the physical because there is no clear evidence to be found about this, or people simply lack their own experience on the matter. So it depends on the person's own individual experiences whether they know from personal experience or lack thereof that there is more or not. These statements come forth from either side. So who is right? We can say both sides are right, that there is something more to life, physically speaking, and there is nothing beyond this life. But depending on an individual's own experiences, they will either agree or disagree with each other. But in the end, life is simply a journey of expansion and fuller expression of our individual awareness. So the more I get lost, the more you get lost in physical life alone, the more I am becoming convinced there is nothing beyond this physical life, and the whole journey, since it would end in death, almost seems pointless. But if I have experience on spiritual perception, seeing without using my physical senses, then I suddenly have evidence there must be more to physical life alone. So there must be a purpose to this journey, even if it seems to end in the grave at first glance. Now, to figure this out for ourselves, what this purpose is about, what this mystery is about, is the greatest goal to fulfill for. If you can glimpse it within your very soul, well, then you'll be joyous beyond words can ever describe, That joy that you will feel by knowing that you're not just a physical being is beyond words can ever convey. So this is just one part of this mystery of the purpose of living. And in a future video, I'll go over this from a more, biblical perspective as well. Because ultimately, I'm convinced that in the Bible, we basically see a whole process of what we go through as individuals. That is the mystery of these scriptures as well, is that they're not just historical records, they're actually conveying what we are all going through even in this day, thousands of years later, and it will keep going like this for, generations to come. We all go through a similar journey, however our experiences can be radically different in how we experience it and perceive it. But ultimately, if we understand this unity behind life, everything will always improve. So I hope you got the main message of this video, which is that to me, simply put, the purpose of living is to simply do and express what you find interesting in this lifetime to do and express. And hopefully there are things that won't specifically hurt other people or cause chaos and, destruction, because people sometimes walk around with those desires and goals as well. And that only ends in disaster for not only the person doing it, but for others as well. So we can only hope that your desires and my desires are positive in nature. And ultimately, because we will move on from this realm, there is only one purpose to it all, and it's just to express what you desire to share with the world. Because if you're going to leave this world, well then the only thing that you will leave behind, physically speaking, is what you thought was interesting to share with humanity. And so if you get into that mindset of sharing, I think then we see this deeper purpose of living here, physically speaking, for the time being. And that's all I wanted to share today through this video. So, thank you for listening, and if you have questions about this, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.